Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're exploring something of a paradox, really. It's right at the heart of, human existence. This conflict between how much we crave ease, comfort, just things being simple.
Right, the path of least resistance.
Exactly. And yet there's this undeniable truth that all real growth, whether it's physical, mental, or even spiritual, it seems to be forged in, friction.
Yeah.
In difficulty.
It's a huge resistance mechanism, isn't it? We almost instinctively fight against the very thing that helps us evolve. We want stagnation, but we try to call it peace.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And we've been looking at some really deep source material for this, including insights from spiritual teachers like Eckhart Tolle. And what's fascinating is how they connect something as, seemingly mundane as muscle growth to these big universal laws governing consciousness, evolution, the whole thing.
Okay, let's just jump right into the main idea then, because, like you said, it can be a tough one to accept. The material we studied is really clear on this point. Evolution, strengthening, it only happens when things get difficult.
Only then.
If there's no challenge, no demand placed on the system, there's just no evolution. Stasis.
And the implication of that, especially for anyone interested in deeper awareness or, spiritual awakening, it's massive.
How so?
It basically means that a real shift in consciousness, that kind of awakening, it's highly unlikely, maybe even impossible, if you're determined to just stay comfortable. If you cling to your existing physical, emotional, psychological boundaries, yeah, it's probably not going to happen.
Right. Okay, so that really sets the stage for what we want to do in this deep dive. We're going to unpack this principle, look at it from different angles, from cells in our body right up to the spiritual journey.
We'll look at the mechanics of resistance, why we fight it so hard.
And contrast, maybe, people who embrace challenge with those who, desperately try to avoid any kind of difficulty.
And see what happens when life itself forces the issue.
Yeah. Hopefully this will really shift how you, the listener, think about those tough moments, those struggles we all face. Let's start with the physical body then. It feels like the most concrete place to see this principle in action. The sources use it as a perfect little model, a microcosm for this bigger law.
Absolutely. It's all about demand.
Demand.
Yeah, the only way your body can get stronger, increase its capacity, is if it's challenged beyond its current capacity.
Ah, okay. Like lifting weights.
Exactly.
Right.
In fitness terms, they call it progressive overload. If you just lift the same easy weight forever, well, your muscles don't change much, they just maintain.
Right.
But if you try to lift something that's actually heavy for you now or run further than you comfortably can now, that's when you trigger the growth process.
Okay, but what's the body's first reaction? Because it doesn't feel good initially, does it?
No, not at all. And that's the fascinating part. The sources highlight the sheer resistance. At first, the body absolutely doesn't like it. That's the phrase used.
So like it.
It sends out signals, pain, fatigue, discomfort. Your mind picks those up and immediately goes into resistance mode. Stop this. Go back to comfort. This hurts.
The inner monologue of complaint.
Totally. But here's the key thing. Because that demand has been made, because the muscle tissue is being challenged, maybe even close to failure, it has to respond. It's a survival mechanism almost. It needs to adapt so it doesn't fail next time.
So it's like a mini crisis that forces an adaptation.
Precisely. That strain, it causes tiny bits of damage, microtrauma. It's a temporary crisis state. And what happens next, according to the sources, is kind of the biological reward, an influx of energy. When the challenge gets intense, when life becomes, as the source puts it, so difficult for the body, it triggers this biological demand for more energy right now to cope with the task and then to repair and rebuild stronger.
This influx of energy, is that just like adrenaline or endorphins or something more? The sources seem to suggest something deeper.
It feels deeper. I mean, yes, chemicals like endorphins are part of coping, the immediate feeling perhaps, but the sources describe it more like a tangible sense of more energy becoming available to the body.
Okay.
Think of it less like just getting a temporary boost and more like unlocking a reserve tank. The body recognized its current resources weren't quite enough. So it signals for more resources to be allocated. It basically upgrades its own operating system, its capacity.
So the difficulty pushes past a threshold, and the body's intelligence responds by saying, okay, we need more power, not just for this moment, but for the future too.
Exactly right. And this is where the feeling can shift. What was initially really difficult, maybe even painful, the heavy lifting, the long run, when you sense this new energy flowing in, it can become, and this is another quote, a very exhilarating thing.
Exhilarating, even though it's hard.
Yeah, it's that feeling of your own capacity expanding. Right here, right now, you feel yourself pushing past what you thought was your limit. There's a kind of joy in that.
And the result we see is, muscles grow, the body gets stronger, more resilient overall.
Right, and the sources make the point. You might not turn into Arnold Schwarzenegger overnight, especially without, extra help.
Sure.
But the principle is solid. Strength is a direct result of that strain, that demand.
Okay, so that's the body.
Ugh.
How does this scale up? You said it connects to universal laws.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. The idea is that this isn't just about biology. Life itself, on a much larger scale, operates the same way. The fundamental rule seems to be, if things don't get difficult, if there isn't some kind of necessary friction or challenge, no evolution happens. Nothing fundamentally changes or improves.
Wow. Okay, so that applies to everything, like society's personal development, consciousness.
That's the implication. Think about it. Evolution in any context, biological, social, technological, even personal consciousness, it always seems to require some kind of pressure, some friction, to force a creative, adaptive response. Without that pressure, things just stay the same.
So, going back to the comfort zone, if the body stagnates without challenge, then psychologically, spiritually, staying comfortable isn't just neutral, it's actively working against growth.
It's the biggest barrier there is. Absolutely.
Okay.
To expect some kind of profound personal breakthrough or spiritual shift while you're carefully bubble wrapping your life to avoid any discomfort, it shows a fundamental misunderstanding of how things work, according to this universal law anyway. If there's no pressure forcing you to expand, why would you? Consciousness just stays kind of contracted, identified with the easy stuff.
Right. Now, even though we can see this clearly in our bodies, when we talk about the spiritual path or even just psychological growth, that resistance we mentioned, it goes into overdrive.
It multiplies, yeah.
People are just naturally so reluctant to be pushed out of their mental and emotional comfort zones, even if they say they want growth, even if they're actively seeking it.
It's that mental resistance, isn't it? The body might just hurt, but the mind argues with the hurt. It creates stories about it. Exactly. The mind builds a whole case against the difficulty, which is why sometimes people choose to impose difficulty on themselves. They create the challenge.
Like setting really big goals.
Yeah.
Or pushing themselves in their career.
Yeah, or like the example the source material gives, attending a really intensive spiritual retreat. Something specifically designed to overwhelm the mind's usual defenses.
Ah, yes. The Vipassana retreat anecdote. That was quite something. It's like a spiritual boot camp, right? Designed to force the issue.
Completely. It's a perfect example of this idea of forced surrender through extreme challenge.
Tell us about the setup again. What makes it so challenging? The extremity seems key.
The extremity is the key. It's designed to remove all your usual coping mechanisms, all escapes. You commit to meditating silently for maybe 10 hours a day.
10 hours, wow.
Sometimes even more structured time, maybe adding up to 14 hours of just being with yourself, with the difficulty. No talking, no phones, no books, no distractions.
It's not just about sitting still for that long, though, is it? It's about what comes up in the silence.
Precisely. You're stripped of all external ways to avoid yourself. So you're forced to confront the mind's chatter, the restlessness, the discomfort, what the sources would call the ego's patterns.
And inevitably, this leads to a crisis point for most people.
Almost always. The anecdote focuses on one participant, and her experience is apparently quite typical. After maybe 2 or 3 days of this intense regime, she just hits a wall. Complete mental and emotional breakdown.
What did that look like for her?
Just total unhappiness, overwhelmed, thinking things like, I absolutely cannot take one more minute of this. Why did I ever think this was a good idea? This is insane.
That sounds like the ego screaming for escape, that desperate urge to just flee the discomfort.
It's the ego in full self-preservation mode. The ego identifies with comfort, with control, with its usual stories. When you take all that away, it panics. It throws up every negative thought and feeling it. Anger, self-pity, blame, intense restlessness, anything to try and get you back to the familiar, back to the comfort zone.
And this led to that almost comical escape attempt.
Yes. It perfectly illustrates the depth of the resistance. In her total desperation to get away from the difficulty of just sitting there, she actually tried to leave the retreat center.
But she couldn't just walk out.
No. The logistics were impossible. It was remote. No public transport. The person who drove her was long gone. It would have meant walking for hours just to reach a main road.
So what does she do?
In this state of complete meltdown, feeling utterly trapped by the difficulty, she got on her cell phone. I guess she managed to sneak it or find reception and called someone asking for a helicopter to come and pick her up.
A helicopter.
Yeah.
To escape a meditation retreat.
Seriously, a helicopter extraction just to get away from the discomfort of her own mind and body.
That says everything, doesn't it? The lengths we'll consider going to just to avoid necessary friction.
Think about that image. Needing the most complex, high-energy escape vehicle imaginable, just to get away from the simple, low-energy task of being present with difficulty. It's profound, really.
But the helicopter didn't come, obviously. Escape was impossible.
Right. Logistically, it was never going to happen. She was stuck. She had no choice but to stay.
And that impossibility, being truly stuck, that's what created the opening.
That's exactly it. That impossibility forced what the spiritual traditions call surrender.
Okay, let's define surrender in this context. It doesn't mean giving up, like collapsing in defeat.
No, not at all. It's crucial to understand that. Surrender here means stopping the mental resistance to what is actually happening in the present moment. The mind finally stops fighting reality. It had run out of arguments, complaints, escape plans. It just dropped the fight.
And what happened when the mental fight stopped? That was the breakthrough, right? Around day 4 or 5.
Yeah. The breakthrough realization was incredibly simple but profound. She noticed that once her mind stopped the constant complaining, the constant narrative about how awful it was, the physical sensations, the aches and pains from sitting so long, they were still there, the body still hurt. But otherwise, it was actually okay. It was bearable.
Wow. So the pain was still present, but the suffering about the pain had gone.
Exactly that. She saw directly that the main source of her misery wasn't the physical discomfort itself. It was the story about the discomfort. The, I can't stand this, this is terrible, I need to escape story.
Right.
Once that mental commentary stopped, the pain just became sensation, information. It wasn't a personal crisis anymore.
And that shift from identifying with the resistance to just allowing the sensation, that only happened because things got very difficult, as the source says. Her comfort zone was completely gone, and the ego's escape plan failed.
It really highlights how sometimes, maybe often, significant shifts in awareness need that feeling of hitting a wall. A point where you genuinely can't retreat. You can't really grow if you always keep one foot near the exit door.
That Vipassana story is a powerful illustration of growth through chosen, albeit intense, difficulty. But what about people who actively try to avoid all challenges?
Right, because the sources also emphasize something important here. You don't necessarily have to go looking for extreme situations like that retreat.
You don't?
Not necessarily. While it's good to challenge yourself, the sources suggest that if you don't, life has a way of, well, bringing the challenge to you anyway.
Okay. So adversity is kind of inevitable, one way or another.
It seems to be part of the deal. Which brings up this crucial idea about choice. Do you choose your challenges, or do you wait for life to choose them for you?
And the sources suggest choosing is better.
Definitely. It's constructive, they say, to challenge yourself on different levels, maybe physically, like we discussed, or mentally by having a goal you're working towards in the world.
Like striving for something in your career, or completing a difficult project, learning a new skill.
Yeah.
Those count as chosen challenges.
Absolutely. Working towards any meaningful goal requires effort. It pushes your boundaries, it involves friction, but crucially, you initiated it. You have some agency in the process, the intention behind it.
And the benefit is?
You're consciously using your potential, expanding your capacity, but sort of on your own terms. You're directing the growth. But what about the alternative? What happens if someone just refuses? If they actively try to stay static?
This brings us to that other example from the source material, the news story, which was presented as a really stark illustration of total refusal.
Yeah, it's quite a sad but revealing case. The source mentioned it was one of only 2 news items they felt were really significant at that moment, some political investigation, and this story.
And the story was about?
A 30-year-old man, still living in his parents' house. But it wasn't just, taking time to find his way. It was an active refusal to get a job, to become independent, to engage with life's basic demands for growth.
He was trying to maintain a zero-challenge existence.
Exactly. His life was structured entirely around avoiding effort. The description was basically drinking beer, watching TV, playing video games, a self-created bubble of minimal demand entirely supported by others.
And for a while, he succeeded in maintaining that comfort zone. But life? Or maybe the universe?
Yeah.
It doesn't like stagnation, does it?
It seems not. In this case, it wasn't some cosmic force, but his parents. They reached their limit. They actually took him to court to get him to leave the house.
And they won.
They won. The judge ruled he had to move out. But here's the really telling part, the irony the source highlighted. When the man was interviewed afterwards, what was his reaction?
What was it?
He was complaining, genuinely complaining that life was becoming so difficult for him.
Wow. After years of meticulously avoiding every possible small, chosen difficulty.
He ends up facing this massive, unavoidable, externally imposed crisis. The very comfort zone he fought tooth and nail to protect was shattered by force.
It's the ultimate paradox, isn't it? The refusal of manageable challenges leads to an unmanageable one later.
Precisely. It reminds me of that other anecdote mentioned about the relative who apparently said, "I've never failed at anything."
Because I've never tried anything.
Yeah, right. It sounds safe in the short term. Avoid effort, avoid failure. But that safety is an illusion. If you deliberately keep your life small, static, refusing to engage, the energy that drives evolution, that pushes for growth, it doesn't just vanish.
What happens to it?
It builds up pressure, like damming a river. Eventually, something has to give. And often, it's something external, something outside your control that forces the change.
So the main takeaway here isn't necessarily that you have to seek out suffering, but that you need to choose your own restriction. Is that it?
I think that's a great way to put it.
Right.
What control do you gain by choosing your challenges? You gain the choice of which adversity you face.
Right.
If you challenge yourself, if you pursue a goal, you select the type of difficulty. You manage the effort. You learn from it. You gain the expansion. But if you just refuse, if you stay passive in that comfort zone,
Then life chooses for you.
yes, life will provide the friction. And the sources are very clear. If life chooses the challenge, you may not like it.
What kind of challenges does life tend to choose?
Often, it seems to manifest as things we really don't want. Forced loss, sudden unwanted change, maybe financial hardship, illness. Difficulties where you feel like a victim with very little conscious control over the situation.
So it boils down to life demands movement, demands evolution. You can either choose to move yourself through chosen challenges.
Or life will eventually move you, often in a much more disruptive way.
That makes sense. The universe seems to abhor a vacuum,
Yeah.
and it seems to abhor stagnation too. It will provide the necessary push, often through pain or loss, if our own resistance to chosen effort is too strong. It forces a bigger, often more painful surrender.
And, this whole idea that difficulty is essential for growth, for reaching higher states, it's not some new age concept or a modern psychological finding. Not at all. It's actually ancient wisdom. It's embedded in philosophical and spiritual traditions going way back.
Which is why the sources bring up that famous Latin phrase, I might mispronounce it, per aspera ad astra.
That's the one. Per aspera ad astra. Its origins are often linked to Roman philosophers like Seneca or Virgil, though the exact source isn't definitively known. But the meaning is powerful.
Let's break that down. What does it actually mean?
Okay, so ad astra literally means to the stars. It signifies reaching for high achievement, greatness, enlightenment, the highest potential.
Right, to the stars.
But the crucial part is per aspera. That means through hardships, through difficulties, through rough ways. It implies struggle, labor, even suffering.
So the phrase isn't just to the stars, it's through difficulty to the stars. The difficulty is the path, not an obstacle on the path.
Exactly. It's an active statement. The way to the stars is the rough way. It connects directly back to what we said about the body, doesn't it?
Yeah, the friction needed to build muscle is the same kind of principle as the friction needed to elevate the spirit or achieve something great.
The embedded wisdom is just that. Growth requires resistance. You only ascend through adversity. But the sources also touched on something even more radical than just accepting difficulty.
More radical.
Yes. The ancient tradition across various paths of actively seeking out difficulty, not just enduring it when it comes, but intentionally embracing hardship.
Okay, that sounds intense. Why would anyone actively seek out suffering?
Well, it wasn't about self-punishment, not usually. Think about practices like extreme asceticism, intense fasting, long periods of silence and solitude, harsh disciplines you see in early Christianity, or certain yogic or Buddhist paths, even Stoicism to some extent.
Right, monks in deserts, the yogis in caves.
Exactly. They understood voluntary discomfort as a kind of spiritual forge. By intentionally subjecting themselves to physical hardship or depriving themselves of normal comforts, they were forcing a direct confrontation with the ego, with the mind's attachments and resistances.
So choosing to suffer was a tool. How does that speed things up compared to just waiting for life's inevitable challenges?
Because you're taking control of the training process in a way. You're building resilience before the unavoidable crises hit.
Mm.
When you choose to sit in meditation through pain, or fast despite hunger, or endure voluntary hardship, the discomfort is real. The ego screams just as loudly. But because you chose it, you also have the power, moment by moment, to choose surrender to it. You practice that breakthrough realization we talked about, separating the raw sensation from the mind's suffering about the sensation.
It's like training the mind not to automatically identify with every negative feeling or thought that comes up.
Precisely. You're weakening the ego's grip, its identification with my comfort, my body, my preferences. You're demonstrating to your own system, okay, this is difficult, but I can be present with it. I don't need to panic or resist.
And that frees up energy.
Huge amounts of energy. All the energy that normally goes into fighting reality, complaining, planning escapes. Remember the helicopter. That energy becomes available for awareness, for presence, for deeper insight.
Which might explain why so many myths and spiritual stories involve a hero's journey through intense trials, or a period of exile or self-imposed hardship before they achieve their goal or attain enlightenment.
Yes. The difficulty wasn't just something to get through. It was the actual mechanism of transformation, the necessary prerequisite.
So it really reinforces that choice we discussed earlier, but maybe at a higher level. You can wait for life to impose potentially chaotic adversity.
Which is often traumatic and feels out of control.
Or you can choose your adversity. You can choose discipline, choose the difficult path, and use that self-imposed friction deliberately as a tool for growth and awakening.
The goal isn't the suffering itself, obviously. Nobody enjoys pain for its own sake. The goal is the freedom from suffering that comes through meeting it consciously.
The discomfort then isn't a sign something is wrong, necessarily. It could be a sign that you're actually moving, expanding. Like muscle burn means growth is happening.
That's a perfect analogy. The presence of friction is almost validation that you're not just stuck in neutral. If everything always feels easy and comfortable, chances are you're just repeating what you already know, operating within your existing limits.
But if it feels difficult, challenging, stretching you,
That's when you know you're actually breaking new ground. Whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually, you're on the edge, and that's where evolution happens. #outro.
Okay, so let's try and bring this all together. The core message from this deep dive, for you listening, it seems really clear. Whether we're talking body, mind, or spirit, whether the challenge is one we choose or one life throws at us, difficulty isn't just an inconvenient byproduct of growth, it's the actual engine.
It really is. The comfort zone, as appealing as it sounds, isn't a place of rest and recovery. It's fundamentally anti-growth. It's the opposite of awakening.
Comfort leads to stagnation.
Right.
Growth requires demand, requires friction.
Yeah, so if you're genuinely seeking to expand, to wake up more fully, to realize your potential,
Yeah.
you kind of have to make peace with the fact that the path will involve discomfort. There will be moments your ego wants to hit the panic button, wants to call for that spiritual helicopter.
Yeah.
But understanding this principle suggests that it's precisely in those moments when escape feels impossible. When you're forced to surrender or you choose to surrender, that's where the real breakthroughs are found.
Knowing this law, this principle, it reframes everything, doesn't it? Setbacks aren't just failures or punishments, they're signals, necessary friction.
Necessary evolutionary pressures.
Right. So, since life pretty much guarantees that challenges will come our way sooner or later,
And we know that choosing our own challenges leads to more constructive, manageable growth.
then here's the final thought we wanted to leave you with, something to maybe reflect on.
If you feel like you're in a comfortable phrase right now, maybe even feeling a bit stuck, or if you notice that resistance to effort in yourself, ask yourself this. What subtle, maybe uncomfortable, but ultimately constructive challenge could you choose to take on today? Something physical, something mental, maybe a goal at work, learning something new.
Something that pushes you just a little bit beyond your current edge.
Before life decides it's time to push you, perhaps in a way you'd much rather avoid.
It's a powerful question to consider. We really invite you to reflect on this whole idea of necessary difficulty. How does it land with you? Does it resonate with your own life experiences, those moments of breakdown that led to breakthrough?
We'd love for you to think about how you might consciously use friction, use challenge in your own life moving forward.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Until next time, maybe. Embrace the friction.
Embrace the friction. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.